Homeless girl saves dying man unknowingly a billionaire. His insane reaction will haunt you. Sarah was invisible. A ghost in the bustling city streets, her presence marked only by the leftover coffee cups and scraps of paper she collected for warmth. But on one fateful afternoon, as the summer sun struck the pavement with a fierce glare, she noticed something strange, a commotion near the corner of Elm and 10th. People screamed. Their eyes were wide, their hands clutching their throats. The sounds were deafening. Yet when she turned to look, her heart stopped. A man lay crumpled on the sidewalk, blood pooling like spilled paint. He was handsome but pale, a silver watch glinting against his dark skin. It felt like time stopped a tragic painting where she held the only brush. Sarah felt a tight knot in her stomach as she stepped closer. She squinted at the crowd closing in, their whispers igniting a storm of curiosity. What happened? Who was this man? Something deep within her urged her to act. She knelt beside him, fingers trembling. As she laid her hands on his chest, a surge of warmth shot through her, filling her with an urgency she couldn't explain. It was magnetizing, electric, and terrifying all at once. She poured every ounce of her desperation into him, willing him to breathe. Suddenly the crowd gasped. It was as if the world had plunged into silence. His eyes flickered open, revealing pools of dark mystery. They locked onto hers, widening with confusion and disbelief. "Who are you?" he managed, his voice barely a whisper. The question swirled inside Sarah's mind like a tempest. Was he someone important? Had he seen the richness of life she could barely grasp? She hesitated, tears brimming in her eyes. This was beyond her imagination. She was saving a stranger in a city that usually ignored her. The air felt thick, everyone holding their breath, waiting for the next moment to plunge into chaos. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, just as quickly, the moment shifted. His confusion morphed into horror. As he pressed a hand to his heart, his breath quickened. "Why were you near me?" A flicker of something unplaceable crossed his expression. The crowd buzzed. An electric charge of shock rippled through them, and they murmured, eyes darting back and forth between them. The tension crackled. Who was this man? And why did Sarah, a girl who felt like a shadow, hold such power over him in that very moment? She felt the weight of their judging stares, a mixture of pity and curiosity. The world felt small and large all at once, as secrets swirled in the air like faint whispers. Did he even know her name? Did he even care? She powered through the anxiety tightening her chest, striking a spark of hope that flickered to life within her. Was this genuine? Could this man, this stranger, change her life forever? As she gazed into his eyes, fear and fascination merged. The questions spiraled endlessly in her mind. Who was he really? And why did their destinies collide in such a bizarre, life-altering moment? Little did they both know, this was only the beginning of a story that would take unexpected turns. The man's eyes darted across Sarah's face, searching for something, answers, perhaps, or even humanity. But she was just as lost. The surrounding crowd remained frozen, a living tableau of disbelief and sensational urgency. The heavy air smelled like sweat and panic, the city's heartbeat pulsing around them. "Please," he gasped, his voice trembling. "Help me sit up." With newfound determination, Sarah moved swiftly, her hands gently coaxing him to a sitting position. Their skin brushed together, and an overwhelming warmth spread through her, a stark contrast to the cold reality of the moment. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice hoarse, marred by confusion. The bloodstain on his shirt mirrored her own internal chaos. "You collapsed," she breathed. "But you're safe now." For a split second, Their gazes locked again, and in his eyes, she saw fragments of a life not meant to end on this sidewalk today. The crowd shifted, closing in tighter, their whispers growing louder. "Who is he?" Someone murmured. "Is he famous?" Another voice cut through. "We should call an ambulance." But the man waved a hand weakly. "No, I don't need an ambulance," he insisted, voice frail but firm. The tension thickened again as he fixed his intense gaze on Sarah. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she squeaked, a mixture of shock and disbelief tightening her throat. This man had questions for her when she barely knew who he was. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, touching her hand briefly, as if to anchor himself in reality. The contact sent ripples of energy through her, igniting a spark of hope she didn't even know she possessed. With a sudden flash, the man looked back at the crowd, a hint of panic flashing across his face. "Get back," he shouted, and with that he scrambled to his feet, staggering as he did. The crowd gasped again, eyes widening in shock. "What do you mean?" Sarah stammered, scrambling to catch him before he fell. "You're hurt. I can't be here," he murmured, his voice caught in a swirl of fear and urgency. "Someone may come for me." A flash of raw terror crossed his features, igniting a cold chill down her spine. His words hung heavy in the air, resonating with an unspoken warning. Conflicting emotions swirled inside her: the urgent need to help, the instinct to flee from someone clearly in danger. The crowd behind her began to murmur, and a flicker of unease radiated through them. "Stay with me," she urged, gripping his arm tighter. Just then, a distant siren echoed through the streets, slicing through the tension like a knife. The man froze, his expression shifting between determination and fear. "You need to go. Now." Panic clung to his words, thickening the air around them. "But no." He gripped her shoulders, desperate. "You don't understand. They can't see you here." The urgency surged between them, threatening to fracture the fragile silence that had enveloped the city block. Before Sarah could gather another thought, his eyes flashed with something wild, something she couldn't recognize. In an almost instinctive reaction, he began to pull away from her grasp. "I want to leave you," she shouted, adrenaline pouring through her veins. "Trust me," he yelled back, his voice rising above the crowd. "Your life depends on it." And with a final look, raw and vulnerable, he turned and melted into the maze of alleyways, leaving Sarah standing there, heart racing and a cold void filling her chest. Questions hammered at her mind. What did he mean? Who was chasing him? Suddenly, the crowd around her had a new focus, murmuring in confusion and curiosity, secrets hidden behind their eyes. Just as the sirens approached, a thought stormed into her mind. She had to know the truth. What lay behind the man's frantic gaze? And would she dare chase after shadows that could either illuminate her darkest corners or drag her deeper into despair? The sirens grew louder, echoing like a pounding heartbeat in the chaos. Sarah's instincts kicked in. The man was in danger, and she couldn't just stand there, frozen in place. With her heart racing, she turned towards the dark alley where he had vanished. "Wait," she called, her voice almost swallowed by the city's noise. She couldn't let him slip away, not when he made her feel seen, even if just for a fleeting moment. Dodging through the crowd, she felt their confused stares, as if they were laser beams cutting into her back. What was she doing? Why was she chasing a man she hardly knew? But a magnetic pull urged her forward, a sensation that transcended logic. She reached the alley's mouth, glancing down the shadowy corridor. The air was thick with tension, echoing the urgency inside her. One wrong decision could set off a chain reaction that would lead to disaster. Her palms were clammy, and she swiped them against her jeans, stealing her resolve. "Please," she whispered, half hoping he would appear again, half fearing what she might find instead. Sarah ventured deeper. Every sound amplified: the clattering of trash cans, the rustle of plastic bags, the distant hum of the city wrestling with silence. She stepped carefully, eyes scanning for any sign of him, eager yet apprehensive. What if he was right? What if someone was coming for him? "Where are you?" The words barely escaped her lips, heavy with worry. She half expected to hear his voice echo back, but only silence replied suddenly. A rustle to her left tingled her nerves. She turned, but it was only a stray cat, slinking away in the shadows. She exhaled, annoyance and relief washing over her. Clenching her fists, she pushed herself further. Then, a flash of movement caught her eye. There he was, a dark silhouette darting between trash cans, looking over his shoulder as if he were in a horror movie. He was back, visible for a heartbeat, before disappearing around a corner. "Wait!" Sarah yelled, lunging forward. She barreled around the corner, and her heart dropped. He was standing there, trembling, pressed against the wall, his face illuminated by a fleeting glow of a street lamp. A glimmer of hope flared inside her. "Please let me help you." She was close now, close enough to see the desperation etched on his features, fear contorting every line of his face. "Help?" he hissed, his voice a low growl, almost menacing. "You should have stayed back. You don't understand." "Then help me understand," she shot back, her frustration mingling with determination. He looked around, eyes darting to the entrance of the alley. "They'll notice you. They can't know you're involved." "Who are they?" she pressed, feeling the chill of darkness creep around them. He hesitated, and she felt the moment stretching like a taut string ready to snap. "Please, you have to go." His voice was urgent, almost pleading. "This is bigger than you think." Sarah didn't move. Fear clawed at her, but the fire inside burned hotter. "I'm not leaving." Then there was a sound, a muffled voice merging with footsteps that seemed to close in around them. The air changed, electric with impending dread. "They're coming," he shouted, panic spilling from him like liquid fear. "You need to hide." Before she could react, he lunged forward, grabbing her wrist with a strength that took her breath away. "Run." But where could they run to? There was no time to think. The shadows began to close in as footsteps echoed into the alley, merging with her pounding heart. As she pulled away, the urgency of the moment quickened. And just like that, she was swept into a race against time, her life hanging by a thread, caught in a web she didn't even understand. Could she trust him, or would this lead directly into danger? As they fled deeper into the labyrinth of the city, only one thing was clear. The truth lurked in the darkness, and she couldn't escape it forever. What awaited them at the end of the path? Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as they dashed through the twisting alleys, the cold night air biting at her lungs. The man had a firm grip on her wrist, and she tried to keep pace, her mind racing with questions. Who were these shadowy pursuers? Why was she in this nightmare? Where to? She shouted over the pounding footsteps behind them, the sounds growing closer. The man's jaw was set tight, his expression a mask of determination laced with fear. "Keep going," he urged, pulling her around another corner. They entered a narrow passage lined with grimy walls that seemed to close in on them. Sarah's heart hammered, each thud echoing her dread and exhilaration. "Who are you?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. She needed answers. "Just someone trying to stay alive," he replied, glancing over his shoulder. "And you should really have stayed out of it." "No, I want to just watch you run away." She stumbled slightly, adrenaline pushing her forward despite her reluctance. "You can't just brush me off like this." His eyes narrowed, frustration evident in his voice. "This isn't a game, okay? There are people who suddenly, they skidded to a halt. A large dumpster blocked the path ahead, dark and looming like a fortress. In the stillness that followed, they could hear voices low, urgent, menacing. The shadows that had been pursuing them were now just feet away, their conversation laced with tension and threat. "The trail ends here," one voice said, sharp like a knife. Sarah's stomach dropped. They were close, too close. "What do we do?" Her voice trembled, fear tightening around her throat. "Shoo!" He pressed a finger to his lips, eyes wide with urgency. "We need to hide." Without another word, he yanked her to the side and pushed her behind the dumpster. The stench of trash was overpowering, but she felt the thrum of her heartbeat drown out everything else. They crouched in the shadows, barely breathing, listening as the voices grew louder. It was him, a man hissed. He was here. We need to find him before he talks. Sarah's heart raced at the implication. Talk about what? And who were these people? The tension was suffocating, the fear palpable. Did he see her? A second voice asked, fear mingling with anger. We can't let her get away. If she knows anything. She caught a flicker of raw panic on the man's face, and it sent a chill down her spine. They couldn't be found out, not now. The city felt different, the shadows now holding secrets darker than she could comprehend. The footsteps grew closer, and she swallowed hard, trying to silence her rising panic. Could they truly be caught? She glanced sideways at the man, his face strained, and in that moment, she felt an unexpected rush of solidarity. We can't stay here forever, she whispered, desperation creeping into her voice. We need a distraction, he murmured back. If we can create one, maybe we can slip away. Sarah's mind raced. She had little but her own quick thinking in that moment. What if I draw them away? His eyes widened. No, it's too risky. But the determination surged in her. If she didn't act, they wouldn't make it. I can do it. Just trust me. The urgency of the moment flipped through the air like static electricity. She could feel the pull of danger, but also the spark of bravery igniting within her. This was it, a leap into uncertainty. He hesitated, searching her eyes. If you get caught, I won't, she said firmly. Promise. Then go now. With one last look, she pressed herself against the dumpster. It was all or nothing. Her heart pounded in her ears as she edged away, preparing to make her move. Would she risk it all for the sake of a man she barely knew? As she took a deep breath and stepped into the faint light, a voice cut through the darkness, a voice she didn't expect to hear. There she is. They'd seen her. The chase was far from over, but what lay ahead could change everything. Sarah froze, every muscle aching with tension. Panic surged through her veins as she caught sight of the figures emerging from the shadows. The glow of their flashlights bounced against the grimy walls, cutting through the darkness like knives. Run! She screamed, hardly recognizing her own voice, but it was a command driven by instinct. Without a second thought, she darted to her left, away from the dumpster, sprinting into the maze of alleys with no clear destination in mind. The cold air stung her cheeks, but her adrenaline kept her moving. Behind her, shouts erupted, the pursuers spilling out of the narrow passageway. This way! Don't let her escape! Their voices twisted in the air, a menacing chorus that sent chills up her spine. She zigzagged through the streets, weaving in and out of the scattered beams of streetlight. Her breath came in quick bursts, each inhale fraught with fear and desperation. What did they want? Why were they chasing her? Questions burned in her mind, but survival was all she could focus on. The blistering sound of footsteps echoed behind her, and she glanced back just in time to see two figures barreling into view, their silhouettes stark against the darkness. Heart racing, she rounded another corner, praying for an escape. Stop! One of them shouted, his voice clear and authoritative, sending a fresh wave of dread through her. But the urge to flee was stronger than the fear paralyzing her. The streets were empty. The city, so alive in daylight, now felt like a haunted ghost town at night. Each turn brought uncertainty. Each shadow threatened. Sarah turned into a narrow alley and skidded to a halt, her back pressing against the rough brick wall. The clang of her own pulse drowned out everything else. She could hear them drawing closer, hear the scuffle of their shoes against the asphalt. In that moment, she noticed a door at the far end of the alley. It stood slightly ajar, a sliver of hope beckoning to her like a lifeline in the dark. With a swift glance behind, she bolted for it, her pulse racing as she pushed the door open and slipped inside. The darkness engulfed her, but she was out of sight, if only for a moment. She stood still, trying to steady her breathing, praying they hadn't seen her enter. The air felt heavy in the enclosed space, and she had to fight the urge to panic. From somewhere outside, she heard their voices again. She went in here, searched the building. Her heart dropped. Whatever sanctuary this place offered was slipping away. She needed to think fast. Panic surged within her, and as she scanned the room, she spotted an old staircase. Without second-guessing her instincts, she darted toward it, her hands grazing the peeling wallpaper as she climbed. Each step echoed under her feet, a cruel reminder of her vulnerability. Reaching the landing, she dared to peek through a grimy window. Out on the street below, the pursuers were fanning out, their faces taut with anger and determination. She felt the icy fingers of dread creep down her spine. They were closing in. Suddenly, a crash sounded from below. Had they found the door? Her stomach dropped as adrenaline kicked in once more. They could be here any moment. Could she hide? Or maybe find a way to escape from another exit? Then she heard a low voice, echoing from the stairs. "You think you can just run away, little girl? We will find you." The threat hung in the air as she backed away from the window, finding herself trapped between fear and adrenaline. The need to escape intensified, and in that moment, she realized something. She couldn't leave this man behind. He had been her only ally in this chaos. Mustering her courage again, she scanned the room for another way out, but was it too late? Just then, a new sound resonated through the darkness. The soft creak of the staircase. Someone was coming, and she was about to face the ultimate choice. Fight or flight. What awaited her at the top? Would the truth push her further into the nightmare, or lead to an unexpected twist? The creaking grew louder, each groan of the stairs echoing like thunder in her ears. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding fiercely. She could feel every beat throbbing in her throat. "Where are you?" The man's voice called again, lower this time but still filled with menace. "You can't hide forever." She closed her eyes, biting her lip to keep a whimper from escaping. It felt like the room spiraled into oppressive silence, every shadow morphing into a threatening shape. She resisted the urge to glance back, afraid the movement would draw attention. With a surge of determination, she glanced toward the darkened corners of the room, searching for anything that could help her. A dusty shelf stood nearby, cluttered with forgotten objects. A broken bottle lay at her feet. As she picked it up, she felt the cool glass against her palm. Maybe she could use it if it came to that. The sound of footsteps grew nearer. Each step felt like an ice pick jabbing into her nerves. Her breath turned shallow as adrenaline fueled her fight-or-flight response. "Come on." The man's patience seemed to wane. "If you're hiding, you better show yourself. I don't like games." The door at the bottom of the staircase flew open, slamming against the wall with a force that made her jump. Light flooded the narrow space, sweeping over her disheveled form like a spotlight. "Check everywhere." A commanding voice called from the shadows outside. She couldn't have gone far. "Keep searching." The cold wave of panic surged through her again, urging her to move. But then, without warning, a hand gripped the railing, pulling the man up into the open. She froze as his silhouette emerged, jaw set and eyes fierce. He looked furiously determined, but beneath that rage was a hint of desperation. "Listen, I'm not gonna hurt you," he called, body tense as he reached the top. "I can help you, but I need you to trust me." "Trust?" The word hung heavily in the air. His eyes darted, scanning the room almost frantically, searching for her. "You saw what they did to me, you helped me." "I remember," he spoke softer now, as if drawing her out with his words. "But we don't have much time. Trust me and we can escape together." Together. The thought wrapped around Sarah like a warm blanket, easing the icy grip of fear just enough for her to contemplate. But his words were also a warning. Should she trust him or stick to her instincts that screamed danger? Before she could decide, the door below burst open once more, and the shouts grew closer. They were coming up, searching every crevice with relentless urgency. Her heart raced as she eyed the window. A more daring escape might be her only option. But could she leave him? "Now is not the time to hesitate," he urged, stepping closer. "You need to choose. Move." Sarah hesitated, conflicted. She was torn between the instinct to flee and a budding sense of loyalty to the man who had saved her life. What was his secret? Why did he need her? Just then, she saw movement from behind the staircase, a dark shadow creeping over the floorboards. She felt her stomach drop as realization crashed over her. They were almost here. In that frantic moment, as decision hung in the air like a squeezing grip, she took a deep breath, feeling the glass bottle slip from her hand, shattering into pieces. Was she about to leap into the unknown, or plunge further into the nightmare? The choice loomed ahead, and she knew action was her only chance. But would she be able to break free in time, or was the trap closing in around her fast? Sarah could feel the seconds ticking away, and as she prepared to leap into action, her breath caught in her throat. What awaited her could either be salvation or doom. The moment Sarah's foot hit the ground, the shattering glass echoed like thunder, mingling with the frantic shouts from below. Everything within her screamed to run, but the sharp glint of desperation in the man's eyes anchored her in place. "Get out of there, now!" he barked, urgency cracking his voice. But where? The window felt like an impossible leap, the staircase a labyrinth of rising threats. She could hear footsteps directly beneath her, heavy and insistent, crushing the silence. The man took a step forward, his dark silhouette expanding against the dim light. "Trust me, Sarah. I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Could she really trust him? The shadows seemed to swallow her thoughts one by one, tearing at her instincts. Yet something in her gut told her he wasn't just another threat. The shadows coiled around her. Whispers floated from below. "Where is she? She has to be here." With a surge of breath, she closed her eyes, the cold air filling her lungs. She could do this. Adrenaline surged through her as she sprinted past him toward the cabinet, flattening herself against the wall. The guy reached for her, his hand brushing against her arm, igniting a charge of warmth amidst the panic. "Turn the cabinet," he urged, and without thinking, she pushed against the heavy door. It creaked, and the darkness within seemed to pulse with life. "Go. I'll hold them off." His resolve shook her to the core, but the raucous voices below jolted her forward. With every ounce of courage, she ducked into the cabinet, the scent of mothballs and damp wood enveloping her. The world outside faded, replaced by muffled chaos. Her heart raced as she squeezed into the tiny space, her body pressing against the wall. "Move aside." The voice of a man she couldn't see thundered from below. The door swung open so hard it slammed against the wall like thunder. She barely breathed, holding on to the fragile hope that he would keep his word. She could hear him. "She's not here. You're wasting your time." His voice was heavy and commanding, yet laced with something else. Was it fear or desperation? The men below cursed, frustrated tears of time slipping away as they exchanged questions. "Did you check the basement? What about the attic?" A moment of silence settled, pregnant with tension. Then she heard their footsteps, not retreating but spreading out. The trap was closing in. How long can he hold them off? She murmured to herself, fear creeping under her skin. She needed to know what was happening outside. Just as she was about to risk a peek, the cabinet door squeaked open, daylight spilling in like a spotlight. A face appeared, not the man who had fought for her, but a stranger, wild-eyed and furious. "There you are," he growled, reaching for her. Panic clawed at her throat as she prepared to bolt. Then, from behind the intruder, darkness surged forward. The man who saved her leapt out, shoving the intruder back with surprising force. "Run!" he shouted at her, his voice igniting a flame of purpose. Sarah didn't think. She tumbled out of the cabinet and dashed for the window. The man was now wrestling with the intruder, and she could hear the scuffling noises, a desperate fight for survival. She had to get out. Her foot hit the sill. She readied herself, glancing back one last time. The sight froze her blood. The man was knocked to the ground, the intruder looming over him, anger in his eyes. The window beckoned, a gateway to freedom. "No!" she yelled, her voice echoing her inner turmoil. At that moment, she realized running away meant leaving behind the only person who ever cared enough to save her. But maybe she wouldn't be a victim anymore. As the fight swirled behind her, she knew she had to act, to either help him or plunge into the unknown alone. With a steadying breath, she made the choice, a wild thought igniting her resolve. Would she finally embrace her own power, or would the darkness claim them both? And somewhere in her mind, a chilling question arose. Would trust be a deadly gamble, or the key to their salvation? Sarah's heart raced as she pushed herself off the windowsill, sprinting toward the chaos. The air felt thick with desperation, muffled shouts mixed with grunts of struggle. Time blurred, each second stretching out like a rubber band, ready to snap. "Stop!" she shrieked, her voice rising above the clamor. Her body moved before her brain caught up, fueled by instincts she didn't know she had. The intruder turned sharply, eyes widening with surprise. For a split second, she couldn't tell if she was brave or reckless. "Get out of here," he demanded, shaking off the man who was fighting him. The intensity in his eyes pinned her in place, but something deep within her ignited. "Not without him," she yelled back, heart pounding ferociously in her chest. The man's struggle escalated, fists flying like sympathy in the storm. She flinched as she saw a fist connect, driving the breath out of him. The urgency pulled her closer, like a wave dragging her into an ocean of turmoil. In that moment of madness, anger surged through her, a fierce protector rising within. She darted forward, aiming for the intruder's side. "Let him go!" she screamed, adrenaline fueling her actions. The intruder shot around, his glare fiercer than the summer sun. "You think you can stop me?" he spat, and without thinking, Sarah launched herself at him, her small frame colliding against him with all the strength she could muster. Surprise momentarily rendered him still, just long enough for the man on the ground to grab the intruder's leg and yank it out from under him. The man rolled onto his feet, snatching a chair to defend himself. "Get back!" he shouted, brandishing the chair like a warrior's sword. "What are you doing?" Sarah called, fear mingling with a flicker of hope. "I told you to run." The man's voice was a growl. He barely had time to catch his breath before the intruder lunged again, fury etched on his face. But this time Sarah was ready. Grabbing a nearby lamp, she swung it with all her might, the ceramic crashing against the intruder's head. He staggered, surprise morphing into rage, but it gave the man enough time to push forward, tackling the intruder hard enough to send all three of them crashing to the floor. Their bodies slipped and thudded against the ground like marbles scattered after a sudden shove. "What the hell are you doing?" he grunted, wrestling the intruder's arms down. "Fighting for you," she shot back. The man's eyes flickered with something she couldn't quite read. Appreciation? Fear? It all surged through her, setting her on fire with purpose. Just then, the sound of sirens shrieked off in the distance, the wail creeping closer. "Police!" someone shouted from outside, panic echoing as the intruder's defensive posture crumbled. Just as chaos reigned in the dim room, the intruder's body slackened. Without warning, he kicked out, knocking both of them backward and leaping to his feet. "No, no!" Sarah yelled, scrambling to get up as the man grabbed her by the arm. "Stay close," he commanded, dragging her toward the door. "Where are we supposed to go?" she gasped, the weight of her heartbeat thudding in her ears. "Anywhere but here," he shouted, urgency carving his words into her chest. Before the walls could close in any tighter, they flung the door open only to be greeted by two uniformed officers, their silhouettes stark against the hallway's dim light. "Freeze!" one of them barked, and Sarah's breathing hitched in her throat. "Please," not she started, but she felt the man beside her tense, his grip tightening around her wrist. The surprise on one of the officers' faces shifted into something darker, a flicker of recognition. "Carter, Carter." The name hung in the air, heavy with implications. With the shadows closing in around them faster than she could comprehend, a shiver crawled up her spine. In this whirlpool of chaos, a chilling truth began to form in her mind. But as the short-lived silence gave way to erupting chaos, the second officer raised his gun, pointing it straight at them. "Hands where we can see them." In the face of authority and danger, Sarah's mind raced with a new question swinging like a pendulum. Had she intervened only to plunge herself deeper into a nightmare? And as tension crackled between them, The man beside her whispered, "Trust me. Now or never." The shout hung in the air, a taut string ready to snap. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as the officer's gun trained on them felt like a 1,000-pound weight. The room spun, shadows stretching and pulling at her, whispering fears that she couldn't shake off. "Carter, what are you doing?" the first officer demanded, his voice slicing through the tension. Sarah barely registered it. Her focus remained on the weapon aimed at her and the man she fought to protect. "Just don't shoot," Sarah blurted out, raising her hands slowly, her palms sweaty and trembling. "Yes, not what you think." The second officer's gaze narrowed on the man beside her, the recognition shifting into an expression that felt dangerously like suspicion. "You know him? Let us go," Carter snapped, his voice low and fierce, although she could feel the fear bubbling just beneath the surface. "Not until we get answers," the first officer barked. He shifted his stance slightly, eyeing the intruder sprawled on the floor, silently assessing. "Get on the ground. Hands where I can see them." Carter's eyes darted towards the intruder, whose moment of retreat had morphed into something more sinister. He regained his composure, fists clenched at his sides as he attempted to rise. "This is a setup," he shouted, his voice booming as he pushed against the floor, trying to gain the upper hand. "Stay down," the second officer yelled, but Sarah felt the pulse of danger in the air. Carter pulled her closer to him, a wall of protection and desperation. She could see the frantic calculations in his eyes, and she couldn't help but ask, "What do we do?" In the thick silence before the storm, chaos erupted. The intruder leaped to his feet, lunging at the first officer who had his gun drawn, his intent to escape clear as day. It was then everything went wrong. Shouting filled the air, echoes of commands, chaos folding into itself like origami, sharp and dangerous. "Carter," she cried, fear slicing through her. Her instincts kicked in. She pushed her way toward the officers, desperate to explain, torn between caution and the desire to protect. "Yes, innocent. We need stop talking," one officer shouted, but the words fell away with the sound of a gunshot echoing through the hallway. That a shot rang out so loud it shook the very ground they stood on. Time froze as Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The world blurred into a surreal haze. She glanced at Carter, whose eyes were wide with disbelief, wavering between fear and resolve, panting. She caught the glint of metal at the intruder's foot as it slid ominously close to his fingers. Realization crashed over her. He wasn't just a defeated attacker. He was dangerous, and he was playing them all. "Damn it, he's got a weapon," one officer yelled as he moved into position. Sarah turned just in time to see him shifting. "Move!" he barked, shoving her away as he lunged. Everything exploded into frantic motion. The commanding officer struggled with the intruder, who was now red with rage, trying to regain control. The second officer stepped forward, weapons still trained, shout commands that merged into a cacophony of panic. Sarah staggered back, her breath racing. What was happening? In a matter of moments, the stakes had escalated to life and death. She had jumped straight into turmoil with no way out. And then she noticed an unnoticed crevice behind the officers, a way out into the hallway that seemed to breathe and whisper freedom. Yet, fear held her like a vice. If she left now, what would become of Carter? She stepped back into the fray. "I can help," she shouted, her voice gaining strength. But as the body of the man wrestled, her pulse quickened with the realization that danger lurked around every corner as she rushed forward. Her next decision would change everything. Would she leap into the unknown selflessly, or hold back and risk losing everything she fought for? And at that moment, the question hung in the air, thick with potential and danger. Where would this lead them next? Would Sarah become a hero or a victim in this chaotic storm? The answer awaited, just beyond the haze of gunfire and shouting. The ringing sirens finally pulled them from the chaos of the moment, as if the entire city was waking up to prove that they weren't alone in this madness. A short distance away, flashing lights danced in the darkness, reflecting the urgency of the situation. Carter, the man who had overwhelmed her senses from the very start, was shifting against the wall, pushed to the edge. Sarah's heart raced faster than her thoughts. There was no way they could escape separately. She had come too far to abandon him now. "Carter," she called, desperation edging her voice. "We have to stick together." He turned, fear and determination etched across his handsome features. "We don't have time. We'll get caught." But something in his eyes softened just enough to spark hope. "Just trust me," she said again, stepping closer, as if the bond between them could shield them against the chaos. In that split second, between the shouts from outside and the struggle within, she felt the shadows of her past creeping back, moments when she had felt alone, invisible. But now she was alive, driven by a sense of unity she couldn't ignore. They had shared a thread of fate. They couldn't let it snap here. Before he could argue, another shout came from one of the officers, echoing through the tight corridor. "You think you're going to escape? Focus on them." Sarah grabbed Carter's arm, and with a fierce yank, she pulled him toward the exit. "We're taking our chances. Now." Carter hesitated for just a heartbeat, but the fire of desperation ignited a flicker of understanding. Side by side, they burst through the door. The light blinded them momentarily, but they could hear the shout of the officers, louder than the pounding of their hearts. "We'll go left," she urged, sprinting into the alley while the commotion erupted behind them. Lights flashed in shades that felt surreal, shadows bouncing against the cold brick walls. Pumping their legs harder, they dashed through the maze of alleys that had moments before felt like a prison. And moments later, they heard the heated pursuit fading into the distance. Carter slowed down, leaning against the wall, chest heaving. "Sarah," he panted, "I can't explain now, but I promise I'll keep you safe. Just trust me." Sarah's mind spun with confusion. Who exactly was he? But in that moment of exhaustion, she knew what mattered most: survival and solidarity. The turmoil had seasoned her spirit, and she wouldn't let fear define her anymore. "I trust you." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. They shared a glance, the flicker of understanding sparking between them. "Then let us get out of here," he replied, determination renewed in his gaze. They moved on, their path now stretched into the unknown, a thrilling chase with every corner offering a breath of fresh air or the depths of danger. After what felt like an endless pursuit, they finally emerged from the alleys into a loosely populated street, the overhead lights illuminating the path forward. Sarah could hear the distant beeping of cars, the hum of regular life juxtaposed against the reckless insanity they had just escaped. But before they could breathe a sigh of relief, Carter's eyes widened as he spotted a black car parked just ahead. "That's my ride. You're going to need to trust me even more now." Sarah opened her mouth, but curiosity mixed with skepticism. "What if it's a trap? What if I'm not what you think I am?" He cut in, urgency thick in his voice. "I need to get you away from here before they realize we escaped. Please." She chewed her lip, feeling the whirlwind of emotions. But the moment they had shared, the way he had fought for her, tore her heart. "Okay, let us go." They sprinted toward the car, and within moments Carter was flinging the door open beside her, urging her inside. She obeyed without hesitation, diving low as he followed her inside, slamming the door shut. Carter fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. "This isn't how I wanted this to go." The car roared to life, and just then, the radio crackled with static before cutting back to life with an emergency report of a man on the run. Sarah turned pale, fear gripping her heart like a vice. "They're coming for you." Carter's expression hardened into something fierce. "They won't get to us. Not if I have anything to do with it." He hit the gas, and the tires screeched as they flew down the road. The city blurred past them, and even though she felt fear claw around her mind, hope intermingled within her. They had escaped. "Where are we going?" she asked, breathlessly. "Anywhere but here," he replied, the determination heavy in his voice as they sped into the dusky distance. The reality of their escape washed over her like a wave. Sarah could finally breathe, but it was more than merely escaping danger. This was a new chapter to a future where she was no longer a ghost, but a force to be reckoned with beside Carter. And in that moment, as the sun began to rise over the horizon, illuminating the start of their journey, Sarah felt truly alive for the first time. this was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible stories just like this. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to hit the like button and feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the ending. Share this exhilarating conclusion instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this. The time to act is now.